I really, admire your leadership as well. And I think if you are a CEO, end of the day, you've built your company, right? So I would want to ask a question around that. If you were a winery of about medium size, like 20 people, let's say $4 to $5 million sales, which is a little bit of exports, distribution, D2C, cellar door, what would your self-talk look like and your internal sort of, game plan look like, and how would you sort of inspire your team and yourself?
So I thought you might ask me this question, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, actually, I'm going to answer it slightly differently, if that's okay, which is, I was thinking about it from my winery. So I am in that position. We planted 4 years ago. We're tiny at the moment. We have 12 acres of Pinot Noir. So we're moving towards kind of full yields. So at the moment, I sell my grapes as a grape grower. But if I was to think about that very small scale business, and you could kind of scale up to your example, what would I be doing next? So I'm thinking about it. I've got 12 acres of Pinot Noir. It might be 24, it might be 48, whatever it is. What do I do with that? So I'm thinking, well, the number one thing I do is I don't make red wine, I make rosé. Number one, because I know that I can get relatively more premium price points at the sort of mid part of the market. I would then think, well, how do I make myself distinctive and memorable? So I would only, to start with, produce my wine in magnums. No bottle, no 75 cl, magnums only, higher price point. So you might think, okay, Lulie, you're a bit mad. Why are you only putting your wine in magnums? And I'm thinking about that because I'm thinking, actually, if I go to my target consumer, and in my case, it would be English consumers, because I'm talking an example, my local market. Actually, I know that one of the primary occasions for rosé is group socializing. And what do people really love? They love something that looks exciting, that looks big, that looks interesting, that I can turn up to a party kind of going, or I can serve it. So I'm only going to do magnums. I'm also maybe going to do a few special blends every year, depending on how my grapes grow. Maybe I'll buy in a few grapes from one of my neighbours. And maybe I'll get some guest winemakers, maybe a guest winemaker over from South Africa or Italy or France, where we do a guest rosé. And we're starting to collaborate together. And maybe I go over to their winery. So I'm now connected with a winery in South Africa. Even though we're both doing our own brands, they're completely separate. I'm tapping into their market, they're tapping into my market. I'm then going to think about my marketing tactics. So I'm thinking of my local market. I know that typically my consumers are going to be in their 40s, 50s and 60s. That's who can afford what I'm selling. I'm selling magnums. They're going to be 70, 80 pounds a magnum. So I'm thinking, what do my local people do? Well, they play a lot of tennis. Increasingly, they're playing padel. So maybe I'll sponsor or I'll do some events at those. And I'm going to make sure that a magnum of my wine gets to each of the local schools for their socials and fundraisers, because that's about raising awareness. I've grown a little bit, so we're a few years on now, and I'm now starting to think about export. I'm going to go to 2 markets first, Switzerland and Singapore. Why? Because again, the average price point paid in Switzerland is higher. We know that, relatively there's less domestic rosé produced, and I'm going to do pop-up events at ski lodges and bars. So I'm going to talk my way into doing pop-up events in the middle of winter with rosé. Because rosé is about sociability and it's about sharing. It's about kind of, marking the moment, and skiing is that moment. There's sunshine, there's holiday, and often you're skiing in groups. In Singapore, I'm going to find a really cool, older, so somebody who's targeting women in their 40s, 50s and 60s fashion designer. Local, small scale, and I'm going to do a collaboration with them. We're going to have a fashion show that we're going to co-fund. My wine's going to be there. We're going to get lots of photos taken. Maybe she'll blend in some of the colour of my wine into some of her fashion, and maybe we'll do it that way. And in the meantime, I'm going to be driving my content through my Facebook, because us older consumers still use Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. So there you go. That's what I would do.